No, it's interesting. This is just goes back to from a couch potato point of view. In New York, wake up. There was snow on the ground briefly last night as we were going to sleep, and now it is raining. It is warm. And the sky is that gray, ominous gray color, whatever, bright white pearl, I don't know. Now, this woman is in something called a Chardon, Ohio. She says that, and she even uses as a human, she uses the word, they're an assist system, which I think is interesting because I don't really talk about the weather in a system, but that's why, again, but these are the little nuances that you can catch. But the teleportation person is, which I can't verify because I'm not in Ohio. I won't be in Ohio at any point today, and I don't know anybody who's in the weather department. So from our couch potato perspective, with this teleportation ability of television, it is very disorienting and confusing because everything that comes through feels like the people. I mean, like, we have no way of knowing if the people are actually honest or not. We now have to rely on some other authority in order to protect us and our innocent bystander point of view on the information that's being projected.
Chardon, Ohio, who watches us on WEWS. Good morning, Lynn. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you.
Morning, Lynn.
Lynn, what's the weather this morning where you are in Ohio?
We have about 2 feet of snow this morning.
No kidding.
Yes, they had a big system come in. My sisters actually live in Charlotte, and they also got the snow like Brian was talking about. And
So Charlotte and Ohio got about 2 feet of snow. I'm on January 17th, 2022, and I showed you the streets have not even a dusting any longer. It looks like rain.
and then it came up, and we got about 2 feet. And it's still snowing, so.
I wonder if we're going to get that here I'm in Ann Arbor right now. What do you think?
What's the temperature? How cold is it there?
Well, my watch says 23 degrees.
Kelly, how about for you?
It's been very cold this last week.
I'm going to tell you right now weather. What's the weather here? No, here. It is 23 degrees here as well.
Well, then you might be getting
We're going on all the way up. I wonder if we're going to get snow. Do you think we're going to get snow, Mark? No, Mark says no. That's our AccuWeather forecast here in...
I mean, that's the way that the normal, like, for my life in the house, that's how we talk about weather. If it's just, you think it's going to snow, you think it's going to rain, do you think I need a jacket, is it going to be cold out? That's all the conversation's really ever been. We don't even know what other questions to be asking or to be tracking to be helpful or contributory in if our service is needed for some reason, if the weather falls out of alignment. There was also apparently this gentleman, which is Ryan Seacrest, or that's how he announces himself for teleportation purposes. I've seen him on the machine several times go by that name. He said that where he is, there was a underwater volcano that erupted, and then on the West Coast they were getting some kind of tsunami alerts. I being on the East Coast, I don't have that on my phone device. However, they showed it, but again, for an emergency of a large wall of water, if that's the concern in the area that you live in, I could understand the alerts. But other than that, if it doesn't come through on the rabbit ears section of the teleportation device, being the television, and it doesn't actually make it to a newscast of some sort, then the alert system is not really, because once you get past, like, if you have this small range of known channels where you can tap into for your, what you need to know to stay safe, to go about your day, to keep up to date, that's one thing. But the humans somehow blew out the number range to, I don't know what, a lot, in some decimal place system, and they call it digital packaging now. But it gets confusing because how do you know, I mean, how do you know source? How do you know, vet? How do you know any of the words that are important that are supposed to somehow protect the message that we're receiving? I mean, it's a big undertaking, but it's also a big responsibility somewhere in the world to protect the people on the couch that are using this because they don't have a handheld radio. And even if they did, they wouldn't know what channel to tune into because that's not like something they speak about either. So I just want to rewind back to the
He's one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life.
You heard the story of the tsunami, which was big news over the weekend because a huge Tonga underwater volcano erupted, and the satellite
Just one
video which
second.
we have. Take a look. You've probably seen this on your phone, but look at that.
And it's spellbinding.
So, if that happens, you see the eruption. And the way that I found out about it was people living in Southern California, friends of mine in LA, they're saying, the tsunami's coming, bro. Hit me up. And, of course, at that time, they didn't have much information, but you just figure with displacement of water, that water's got to go somewhere. And when you looked at the broad scope of the warnings up and down the entire West Coast, it was pretty incredible to see.
And everybody's like, get to Seacrest Compound because,
It's on stilts.
A lot of people don't realize this, that Ryan has a compound that is so set up.
That's now her being, I guess, a little sarcastic, a little snarky, a little whatever, but it gets confusing depending on the seriousness of the way that you receive the message. Apparently his house is on stilts. It's very technology advanced. It goes up or whatever. I don't know how the houses in California are. New York, we're not nearly as sophisticated. The residence I'm in was built in the 1960s, and they didn't have such things. Besides the fact that it's a different territory. But I thought that was interesting because if it didn't come through on the television morning show, there would be no way for me I wouldn't even know to go looking for or to be aware of something going on somewhere in the ocean area. That's where it really comes into, like, we're in a blind of sorts, and there's a larger communications area and management system that we all rely on, being just day-to-day on the streets and not knowing who, how, what, when, where. But I know in other areas of management, their feedback is important because that's how you learn if there's a deficiency that might affect others. is through communication in the feedback loop. Even if it's negative feedback, it might be seen as positive feedback to somebody, in usefulness, to perfect something, but also at some point as like a utility, I suppose. But also, it's important for a larger scale in whatever function that they hold, to be able to know how it's affecting, so they're a more effective leader in their position of importance somewhere in a totally different looking lifestyle, or life frame. That's usually the word that I use around here. Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken at Space Station beside New York 136 point.